Hello. Hi. Good evening, everyone. So let's start with the discussion of cross culture. This is just a second. So the details for this discussion is taken from Erin Mayer. Erin Mayer. This is a very nice book, worth reading. Erin Mayer. She is a professor of cross culture at INSEAD Business School. It's a very profound book and quite easy to understand. So let's hear that. Okay, Erin Mayer, she's a professor of cross-cultural management at INSEAD Business School, Paris, and this is a book is released in 2014. Data is available for 67 countries. The online tool that they have, and yeah, so and we are majorly going to discuss the 8 dimensions of cultural difference that impact the international business management environment. So, how Erin Mayer views culture is based on these 8 key areas, and the references from the point of view of we are studying this from the point of view of business management. First is leading, second is decision making, and third is disagreeing. Just a second. Let me. First is leading, second is decision making, third is evaluation, fourth is disagreeing, and fifth is communication, sixth, trust, seventh, persuasion, and eighth is scheduling. Let's understand them one by one. Okay, with respect to communication, there are certain cultures which follow which follow low context, and there are certain cultures which follow the high context way of communication. What do you mean by low context? Low context means yes or no. High context is the yes or no is unclear. For example, we have a client meeting tomorrow. I'm let's say my name is Shell. I'm Shell, and let's say your name is Ed, and I'm telling Ed that tomorrow we have a client coming in from US. Let's say his name is Mike. So I'm telling Ed, hey Ed, would you be able to come tomorrow? I know tomorrow is a weekend. You have a day off, but it's a client. We have a client coming in, flying in tomorrow, and he will just stay for a day, and will go back Monday morning. So, do you mind coming up and meeting and greeting him and just brief him about the aspects of your project for half an hour? To which Ed says, well, yes, I understand. Tomorrow we have a client meeting, but tomorrow is an important day. Um, it is my kid's birthday tomorrow. So yeah. Now myself, on the other hand, I'm just thinking whether he will be coming or not. Is it a yes or no? That is high context. You need to understand Ed's point of view. He is not directly saying no. He has not directly said yes, but it needs to be understood. Reading between the lines. This is high context. let's say similar example, low context culture. Hey Ed, would you be able to come tomorrow? I know it's a day off, but we have a client coming in from from US for an important discussion, and he will just stay for a day and will leave by Monday morning. Well, yes. Now this is Ed is responding. Well, yes, I would love to, but however, I have my kid's birthday tomorrow, so I don't think I would be able to, and I'm traveling outside the city. That is yes and no. Low context. Similarly, we have evaluation, direct feedback, indirect feedback. Sometimes you give feedback in a way which is be it positive or negative, you just convey it. And there are certain countries which follow indirect negative feedback. Similarly, persuasion, principle first, application first, leading, egalitarian or hierarchical, top down approach. Similarly, decisions, consensual or top down, trusting, task based or relationship based, disagreeing, confrontational or avoids confrontation, scheduling, linear time or flexible. Let's understand them one by one. This is extremely important to understand. If you manage a global team that includes both Asians and Westerners and a few other, different cultural contexts, it is very likely that you will hear the common Western complaint that the Asian participants don't speak very much. Asian participants don't speak very much because they have a tendency of high context, and they more or less accepts what is being told, and are less forthright about offering their individual opinions in team meetings. That's their general feedback for the Asian teams. Let's understand why. Is it because of trust issues? Perhaps not because of, but it is because of the cultural difference and cultural nuances. Okay, case study one. Scenario: author Erin Mayer, who is an American, who is a American, is a cross-cultural trainer. Then you have a person whose name is Bo Chen. I will. Okay, window capture display. So, if you see, Bo Chen is a Chinese country expert who will assist this training session. Client name is Mr. and Mrs. Bernard, and the session started with author explaining all the details of the culture and carefully kept an eye on Chen so he could get his input. So here the scenario is Mr. and Mrs. Bernard. They are moving from a country to now China. Mr. and Mrs. Bernard has hired a trainer whose name is Erin Mayer, who is a cross-cultural trainer, to help Mr. and Mrs. Bernard understand the cultural nuances of China. Now, Erin Mayer also, the trainer, also have hired one more guy from China whose name is Bo Chen to help Erin Mayer in conducting this training session to Mr. and Mrs. Bernard. Now, when this training is getting started, the trainer is constantly keeping an eye on Bo Chen to include or to invite him for his responses. This is a scenario. Okay. It says, after finishing the first dimension, author paused briefly and looked at Bochen for his input, but Chen did not speak. He did not open his mouth, moved his body forward, or raise a hand. He did not open his mouth, moved his body forward, or raise his hand. Not wanting to embarrass Chen or to create any awkward situation by calling on him when he was not ready, the trainer simply continues to the next point. She simply kept continuing the session. What happens? Now the author continued for 3 hours. She needed Bochen's input for the program to succeed. Finally, although she did not want to create an awkward moment in front of the client, she decided to take a chance with Bochen. What happens next? Erin. Bo, did you have examples you would like to share? Bochen sat up straight in his chair, smiled confidently at clients, and opened his notebook, which was filled with pages and pages of typed notes. He said, I do, and began to explain one clear, pertinent, fascinating examples one after another. He was well prepared. But you see, he did not spoke at all and kept waiting. For the invitation to speak. Okay, Erin. Erin decided to ask Bochen for an explanation of his actions. Why you had all of these great examples, why did not you jump in and shared with shared them with us earlier? Look at his response. Were you expecting me to jump in? He asked, at a look of genuine surprise on his face. He went on to describe the situation. What is his situation is? As author Erin is a senior As author Erin is a senior person in the room, he waited for her to call on him while his behavior was I showed how I'm a good listener by keeping both my voice and my body quiet. In China, we often feel Westerners speak up so much in meetings that they do this to show off or they are poor listeners. Also, Chinese people leave a few seconds of silence before jumping in, that in the West. So Bochen did not raised his voice, did not show any signal through his body language. Why? Because in his culture, they think that he should show that he is a good listener as well as by keeping voice low and body quiet. On the other hand, they think that Westerners speak too much and they lack patience and respect for the person who's speaking. We Chinese often feel that Americans are not good listeners because they are always jumping in on top of one another to make their points. I would have liked to make one of my points if an appropriate length of pause had arisen. So he kept waiting for the author or the trainer to give a pause. Sorry. But Erin was always talking, so just keep waiting patiently. Okay. He again added, Bochin, my mother left it deeply ingrained in me. You have two eyes, two ears, but only one mouth. You should use them accordingly. While trainer may think that Bochin has not prepared, while trainer may think that Bochin is not confident, he has not come prepared, he does not have enough knowledge, while on the other hand, Bochin was extremely prepared. However, his culture is to wait until, do not speak until you get an invite or until you get a proper pause. And that's what you need to understand, or we need to understand, as cultural nuances and bridge that gap. Case study 2, which is a relocation assignment. Let's understand that. So, this is a second case study, and it says it is a relocation assignment. Sabine Dulac is from Paris. She's a finance director. She's moving to Chicago for a 2-year assignment. And Sabine, as per Sabine or Sabine, or she thinks that moving to Chicago is going to be perfect for her. And her opinion is she loved working with Americans. Ils sont tellement pratiques et efficaces, which is a, what she's saying in her local language. I love the focus on practicality and efficiency, and they are so transparent. So her move as a finance director to Chicago is going to be, it's going to be great. That's what she expects. And she's also saying Americans are so much more explicit and transparent than we are in France. That's her opinion, and let's see. That's her observation, and let's see what happens next. Jack Weber is boss of Dulac, Sabine Dulac. Now, when I asked how Dulac is doing, I'm friends with both Jack, I'm friends with both Sabine Dulac. I am a cross cultural trainer, or let's say I am Shailendra and I'm at a senior position, or a position which is analogous, and they both somewhere down reporting to me, Dulac and Jack. Okay. Now, I have asked Jack how is the Dulac's performance, Sabine Dulac's performance after movement from Paris to Chicago. Jack is saying Dulac is doing sort of medium. Her team really likes her, and she is incredibly energetic. I must admit that her energy has ignited her department. That's been positive. She has integrated much more quickly than I expected. Really, that has been excellent. Now, what do you think? I'll just erase it. Now, what do you think? This feedback is positive or negative? This feedback of Jack is positive or negative? Please take a moment to reread this and reflect back while I just have a sip of coffee. I'll give you 1 minute. Reread this feedback given by Jack Weber for Sabine Dulac and help me understand whether this feedback is positive or negative. Okay, so 1 minute is done. Well, I hope you have got or you have decided. Let's hear back directly from Jake. He further adds, however, there are several critical things that I need Sabine to change about the way she's doing, and I just don't see her trying to do so. Her spreadsheets are sloppy, she makes calculation errors, and she comes to meetings unprepared. I've spoken to her a handful of times about these things, but she's not getting the message. She just continues with her same work patterns. I spoke to her last Thursday about this again, but there's still no visible effort on her part. He further adds, we had performance review meeting this morning. I detailed the issues again. We will wait and see, and if she does not get in gear with these things, I don't think this job is going to work out. So you see this feedback starts with sort of medium. American way of giving feedback is sandwich, which is positive, negative, and positive. She's sort of medium is, you can say, positive. Her team really likes her and she's incredibly energetic. I must admit that her energy ignited her department. That's been positive. She has integrated much more quickly than I expected. Really has that has been excellent. And after that, she comes up with the details about the issues and concerns with respect to the feedback. Right, let's move ahead. So there are several critical things that Jack Weber is saying that Sevilla need to change about the way she is doing, and he just don't see her making an effort to do so. Her spreadsheets are sloppy, she makes calculation errors, and she comes to meetings unprepared. He has spoken to her a handful of times, but she is not putting in the efforts or the right things. And they have a performance review this morning that has been detailed again. And if things does not go fine, I don't think that job is going to work out. This is what Jack Weber meant, what he said. Now, myself, on the other hand, I have asked Irene, I have asked Sabine Dulac, how has been your progress and how has been your work experience while working with Jack Weber in Chicago? What Sabine Dulac is replying is, my team is terrific. I have been able to connect with them and I have a great relationship with my boss who is Jack Weber. For the first time in my career, I have found a job that is just perfect for me, that takes advantage of all my talent and skills. Oh, and I must tell you, I had my first performance review I have had since starting with this journey. I often think I will try to extend my stay beyond these 2 years. Things are going so well. A positive, uh, extreme positive gesture, what she has absorbed. If you take a moment to reflect on these sentences by Sabine Dulac, she is extremely positive about it. And that's what brings us to the discussion of low context and high context cultural environment. What is low context? Good communication is precise, simple, and clear. Messages are expressed and understood at face value. Repetition is appreciated if it helps clarify the communication. High context is good communication is sophisticated, nuanced, and layered. Messages are both spoken and read between the lines. Messages are often implied but not plainly expressed. This is high context. So you see, uh, Jack is coming from this country, Chicago, Jack Weber, and our Sabine Dulac is coming from Paris, France. Here. So the feedback that has been given by Jack was negative, but Jack has given that feedback in a low context way or a low context fashion. While Sabine Dulac is coming from France, which is towards high context side as compared to the US. There's a wide gap. What Sabine Dulac's expectation is, if it is positive, tell me positive. If it is negative, tell me straight away negative. Because her culture is high context. In this example, this is the case. However, let's say case B, if she's coming from France and then someone is coming from Indonesia or Korea, in that case, they are more high context and France is low context. But here in this case, as compared to US is low context while France is high context. This is in general, but in terms of feedback, there's an exception for feedback for France. They give direct negative feedback. Otherwise, they are high context. US, otherwise, they are low context, but their feedback is sandwich type, which is positive, negative, and positive. All right, I hope this is clear. Let's go ahead and understand for the more reasons behind. Normally, French culture is master of implicit communication, which is high context. Implicit means high context. And Americans are master of explicit communication, which is low context. However, while giving feedback, they follow a different approach. And what is that? In a French setting, positive feedback is often given implicitly, while negative feedback is given more directly. In the United States, it's just the opposite. In French settings, positive feedback is given implicitly, which is high context, while negative feedback is given more directly, which is low context. In United States, it is just the opposite. American managers usually give positive feedback directly, while trying to couch negative messages in a positive, encouraging language. Thus, when Weber reviewed Dulac's work using the popular American method of three positives for every negative, Dulac left the meeting with his praise ringing delightfully in her ears, while the negative feedback sounded very minor indeed. What could have been the course correction? So, what could have been the possible course correction in the scenario? Let's understand course correction. Sabine Dulac could have weighed the negative part of the review more heavily than she would if receiving it from a French boss, thereby reading the feedback more accurately and potentially saving her job. While Sabine Dulac was constantly in a mode of receiving the feedback the French way, which is not the case here. So she could have learned the art of receiving the feedback from a manager who is coming from a US background. That could have been done. Also, Jack Weber could have framed his communication for Dulac with some modulation or changes because Sabine Dulac is coming from the French environment. So her she needs some time to settle in. So Jack Weber could have framed his communication. He could have said, when I gave performance review, I always start by going through three or four things positive, and then areas of improvement. I do not go to the important part of the meeting without mentioning positives. Is that okay with you? This could have been the communication context set up by Weber for Sabine Dulac. Okay, body language. What do you think? What do you think about body language? Half handshake is appreciated. Anyone doing half handshake would be appreciated. Half handshake, half nod of the head is a sign of agreement in India. Half handshake, half nod like this is a sign of agreement in India. However, the same is considered as a sign of disagreement, uncertainty, or lack of support, as it would be in most other cultures. Look at this example. Here you have a politician from a culture from Asian country, and then Microsoft head. He's having handshake with a lady with a hand in pocket. What do you think about this kind of body language? Take a moment to reflect. I'll give you 30 seconds. All right. So, this kind of body language is not appreciated. As you can see, it caused a lot of disrupt, and this news was all over in the this photograph was all over in the news, and it was taken as a disrespectful way of meeting and greeting with a politician. What could have been the better way? Like this: Jack Ma, coming from the Asian country, and the political leader also coming from the Asian country, so they understood the body language well, how it is being perceived in the cultures. And look at the way Jack Ma is doing the handshake with the politician, shaking hands and again holding it, giving a lot of this, again handing, again holding the hand through other hand is trust plus respect. Okay, look at this: a slightly bent position, showing respect, a slightly bowing down, and hands outside, and one hand. This is a positive way of doing a handshake, particularly in Asian countries, particularly when you are meeting it, when you're meeting with a lady who is in power, politician. So this is the better way of handshakes. Okay, now you may come across that we are stereotyping individuals because there could be a person from US who would be doing a handshake, definitely not this way, but this way, this way of handshake. Or in this example, this person seems to be from the US continent, and look at the way he's doing the handshake. So there is a possibility that two persons behave differently from coming from a same culture, like in this case. So there could be one reasoning: we are stereotyping individuals because if we try to study the theory based on this way, that all the French people are going back, what I'm trying to say is that you can say that all the people in India are not always high context. You come across people in India who are extremely low context. They don't like, they will say it. So you are stereotyping that all Indians, all Indonesians, all Korean and Japan, they follow high context, while all US, all Australia, all Canada, performs low context. Are we stereotyping individuals? That is one of the reasoning that can be quoted. So the answer to that reasoning is, speaking of cultural differences leads us to stereotype and therefore put individuals in boxes with general traits. Instead of talking about culture, it is important to judge people as individuals, not just products of the environment. This is one reasoning. Answer is, if you go into every interaction as if culture does not matter, your default mechanism will be to view others through your own cultural lens. I hope this is clear. If you see others are not the product of their cultures, and you try to read person A, let's say it in this case it was me, then Sabine Dulac from Paris, and then C, Jack Weber from US. If I'm not considering the French culture, if I'm not considering the US culture, what I will do, I'll try to understand Sabine and Jack as an individual, and I will use the lens of my culture, the culture where I come from, to read them. You understand? Is this point clear? This is an important concept. If I'll repeat that, if I do not understand others as the product of their culture, and on the other hand, I try to read them as individuals. If I try to read them as individuals, I can do that. But the reference point that I'm going to use, the reference that I'm going to use will be my culture. The lens that I will use to view them through, that will be through my culture, and that would be a mistake. Hence it is important to understand the culture. Okay, let me erase that. Okay, what does it say? It say, of course, individuals, no matter their cultural origins, have varied personality traits. So why not just approach all people with an interest in getting to know them personally and proceed from there? If you ignore culture, and you cannot help but conclude Bo Chen does not speak, obviously he does not have anything to say. Let's say if I read Bo Chen, the case study that we discussed, the first case study wherein Bo Chen was helping the cross cultural trainer to teach a person who were moving to China. In that case, Bo Chen did not speak at all. Why? Because he was waiting for the trainer to give him the chance, or to for the exact proper break in the conversation or a pause. So if I do not understand that culture of China, I would say that Bochin does not speak because he doesn't know. Hence, understanding culture or reading culture is extremely important. Okay, Jack told me everything was great in our performance review when really he was unhappy with my work. He's sneaky, dishonest, and incompetent boss. Let's say if I ask, let's say Sabine is no longer on the job, and she has been removed from the job because of sloppy sheets, unprepared in the meeting, and calculation errors. Jack told me everything was great. Now she's no more into the job. And if I interview Sabine Dulac again, how has been your experience? Sabine responses, Jack Weber told me everything was great in our performance review when really he was unhappy with my work. He's sneaky, dishonest, and incompetent boss. That is the feedback that Sabine Dulac would give about Jake. And another important thing is, another important thing is cultural patterns of behaviors and disbelief frequently impact our perceptions, what we see, cognitions, what we think, and actions, what we do. Yes, every individual is different, but that does not mean learning about cultural context is unnecessary. If your business success relies on your ability to work successfully with people from around the world, you need to have appreciation for cultural differences as well as respect for individual differences. Both are essential. All right, let's move ahead. Eight scales model how cultures vary. Communication, low context, high context. I'll give you a moment to read. All right, communications, low context, high context. Evaluation, first. Direct feedback, indirect negative feedback. Persuasion, principle first, application first. Leading, deciding, trusting, disagreeing, and scheduling. Let, let's understand them one by one. Application of model, we have covered the communication part, I think. Yeah. Let's understand application of the model. When you need to motivate employees, delight clients, or simply organize a conference call among members of cross-cultural team, these eight skills will help you improve your effectiveness. How? By analyzing the positioning of one culture relative to another. The scales will enable you to decode how culture influences your own international collaboration and avoid painful situations like the one in which Jack Weber and Sabine Dulac found themselves caught. It is important that you understand the cross culture well and adapt yourself in reference to the culture being followed. Okay, putting the culture map to work. If you see, this is a comparison between Israel and Russia. The dotted line is from Israel, the bold line or dark lines is from Russia. For communication, Israel and Russia are somewhere uh, high context. For evaluation, direct negative feedback, they both are towards the direct negative feedback. Okay. While in persuasion, Russia is principles first, while Israel is application first. If I need to convince you about something for persuasion, I'm trying to pursue you to agree on something. If you are from Israel, I have to tell you the applications and then share the theory. If you are from Russia, you would be interested in the principles first, the theoretical part, and then the applications. Similarly, leading type in Israel is egalitarian. Egalitarian means you can simply reach out and skip the levels and reach out to a person or a senior person who is 2 3 levels above than yours. However, hierarchical is a team lead would write to a manager would write to a senior manager would write to a DGM would write to a GM, and GM would write to a vice president would write to a senior vice president would write to a vice president. That is hierarchical, and here it is egalitarian. Okay, deciding consensual and top down. Because they are hierarchical, they follow a top down approach for decision building. Because it is egalitarian, they follow a consensual approach, which is somewhere here. Consensual, they will take consensus of all of the team members. Trusting, they are both here, which is more towards relationship based. They would like to give the contract to a person who is known to them. Then comes disagreeing. They both follow confrontational. They can openly say they did not like the idea. While there are certain cultures who avoid confrontations. Scheduling. Linear or flexible, they both follow somewhere flexible approach. So this is how you understand if you have two team members who are coming from Israel or Russia, or let's say I am a program manager and I have two teams under me, project A, project B. Project A is with Israel, project B is with Russia. I should know how the team is going to respond to different things. And that's where understanding culture makes most of sense, and it is important to understand this way. Let's move ahead and understand this. Israel and Russia, they both value flexible scheduling rather than organized scheduling, as we have understood over here. Flexible time. My face is coming. Let me just make it like this. If you see, they both follow flexible time. Both accept and appreciate open disagreement. Can be seen here. Disagreement is open, hence it is confrontational. Both approach issues of trust through a relationship orientation rather than a task orientation. You see, let me clear this. You see, they both follow a relationship based approach to trust and not task based. There is a big gap between two cultures when it comes to leading. Russia favoring a hierarchical approach, while Israel prefers an egalitarian one. Again, let me show you here a stark difference between this. There's almost opposite ends, very big difference. So in this way, they are different. These cultures are different. Okay. Crucial perspective, cultural relativity. Spain is task based or relationship based? That's a question. Like most people, you would answer that Spain is relationship based, but this answer is wrong in a way. You need to understand from where you are comparing, with which country you are comparing. That needs to be understood. The correct answer is that if you come from France, then UK, Sweden, and United States, or any other culture that falls to the left of the Spain on the scale, then Spain is relationship based in comparison to your own culture. However, if you come from India, Saudi Arabia, Angola, or China, then Spain is very task based. Indeed, again, in comparison to your culture. This you need to understand. I hope that is clear. You cannot decide any culture as task based or relationship based because there is a reference. there's a reference you need to see. So here in this case, let's say the if you come from France, the United States, Sweden, and United, for the left of the Spain on the scale, then Spain is relationship. So this is relationship based style. This is task based style. Spain is falling somewhere here. You have UK, Sweden, and France or US on the left side, and you have Saudi, China, India, and other countries towards this. So if you say Spain is relationship based, no, the answer is no. Spain is relationship based as compared to countries like UK, Sweden, France, and US, because they are towards the left side, which is task based. However, if you compare it with China, India, or Saudi Arabia, because they are falling towards the relationship side, more skewed toward the relationship side, for them, Spain is more task based. So you cannot categorically say Spain is task based. It is in reference, it is in comparison, and hence it is important to understand the complete, uh, approach towards understanding this way of it. Okay, let's move forward. Case study KPMG and SAP implementation. British Consulting Group KPMG created. This is another case study which says British Consulting Group KPMG created several global teams to standardize the implementation of management software systems developed by enterprise software developer SAP. One global team was constructed primarily of British and French consultants, and throughout their work, the British complained that the French were disorganized, chaotic, and lacked punctuality. They take so many tangents and side routes during the meeting. It is impossible to follow their line of thinking, one British team member said. Case study 2. Another team made of mainly Indians and French. The Indians complained that the French were rigid, inflexible, and obsessed with deadlines and structure to the point that they were unable to adapt as the situation around them changed. If you don't tell them weeks in advance what is going to happen in the meeting, in which order, it makes them very nervous, one Indian team member said. Do you want to read this again? British Consulting Group KPMG created several global teams to standardize the implementation of management software system developed by enterprise software developer SAP. One global team was constructed primarily of British and French, and throughout their work, British complained that French were disorganized, chaotic, and lacked punctuality. British is saying French were disorganized, chaotic, and lacked punctuality. Okay. Here, Indian team member is saying French were rigid, inflexible, and obsessed with deadlines and structure to the point that they were unable to adapt as the situation around them changed. So French team is getting two kind of responses. French is getting two kind of feedbacks, one from UK and one from India. And both the feedbacks are completely opposite, 180-degree out of phase to each other, the feedbacks. Let's understand why. Because if you see France here, UK towards the left side, which is low context, while India is towards the right side, which is high context. So for UK, France is disorganized, chaotic. For India, France is so low context that any new changes in the team meeting also will make them nervous, and they are so rigid they do not know or maneuver around the changes. They do not they are not comfortable with the changes. So that's the reason why you are getting two kind of feedback which are 180-degree out of phase for France, because the feedback is from the UK and the feedback is from India. I hope this point is clear. Contradictory perception of French team. The reason why such contradictory perceptions of the French team members. A quick glance at the scheduling scale shows that the French falls between British and the Indians, leading to opposite perceptions from those two outlying perspectives, as I just described over here. Contradictory perception of French team. Why such contradictory perceptions of the French team members? A quick glance at the scheduling scale shows that the French fall between the British and the Indians, leading to opposite perceptions from those two outlying perspectives. Again, we are part of it, the culture. We do not know, but still we are part of culture because we are constantly surrounded by it. An example, an anecdote here, it says, an older fish to the younger one. Good morning, boys. How's the water? Young fish, what the hell is water? So this anecdote says when you are so much involved and you are constantly breathing in water, you do not know what water is. Let's say if I ask you what is ether, you may say you do not know, you do not have an idea, because you're constantly part of that ether. So when you are in and out of a culture, as fish are in and of water, it is often difficult to even impossible to see that culture. Often people have spent their lives living in one culture, see only regional and individual differences. All right, so I'll take a break for now, and we will conclude in our next discussion. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you.